สวัสดีครับผมเดียวนะครับวันนี้ผมก็มาอยู่ที่มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลนะครับกับงาน TIJC อีกครั้งหนึ่งแล้วนะครับครั้งนี้ผมได้โอกาสได้สัมภาษณ์คุณโจนาธานไครส์เบิร์กนะครับแล้วผมก็ยังอยู่กับเขาอยู่ตรงนี้แล้วนะครับ Hello Jonathan
Hi สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ Okay let's start the first question Can you tell me about your music background how do you start to play guitar
Sure. I grew up hearing a lot of great music. My father was a great listener, and he had a record collection, and we had all kinds of stuff, including classic rock like Cream and Hendrix and Beatles, but also great classical music like Bach and Beethoven, and I heard John Williams playing the Aranjuez Concerto when I was a kid, but he also had great jazz records and some classics. You know, he had Kind of Blue, he had Round About Midnight with Miles, he had, of course, Take Five with Dave Brubeck. You know, he had some Wes Montgomery. So Coltrane, of course. Okay. Coltrane's first self-titled on Prestige. You know, so I heard great jazz and great rock and classical growing up, and I always loved all the music I heard. But when I started playing guitar, it was because of Eddie Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
I heard Eruption, and
Can you tapping?
Oh yeah, sure. I did a lot of that. Sometimes I miss that sound, and I try and create that sound with other ways, you know, because obviously that's a very different sound and setup of the guitar and everything. But you know, there's something about how fluid he was on the guitar that I heard. Years later, of course, I realized that it was the same thing I heard when I listened to Coltrane, My Favorite Things. You know, it was that sound of what they call the sheets of sound or whatever, and you know, it's probably connected because later I also got into Alan Holdsworth a lot, which of course Eddie was trying to sound like Alan Holdsworth, and Alan Holdsworth was trying to sound like Coltrane. So it's all connected, you know. But basically, when I heard that, I said, "Wow, that's a beautiful sound. I want to play that instrument." So you know, I played for a few years playing the stuff that every kid learns on guitar, you know, and then. At one point, I had a friend who was checking out jazz and studying jazz, and I realized the connection. Like, wow, I can play this music on these jazz records on the guitar, you know, which was crazy because they weren't guitar records, you know, and I just didn't. At that point, when you're a kid, you play the instrument you're given. But you know, when I was probably 15 or 16, I realized, wow, I can play any music on this guitar. You know, I can learn anything. So. At that point, I discovered jazz, and it fit my personality. I was already improvising and composing more than I played some classical music, and I would read and study classical music. But I never felt so comfortable performing it because it's not improvisation. You know, I felt more comfortable when I was improvising. So it just led me to jazz, and then I went crazy studying bebop and the jazz tradition. For the next 5 years or something.
Yes. You said about you learn classical guitar. What did you learn from classical music and bring it to jazz?
Well, I mean, classical music I still listen to and study. I like the quote from Wayne Shorter where he says that composition is improvisation slowed down, and improvisation is composition sped up, you know? So they're really related. It's just that with composition, you take the time to maybe think, do I want this? And you change it. No, let me try this. And you have that time. Improvisation, ultimately, hopefully you can do that instantly. So you can learn from both processes. So for me, even when I was playing classical, of course, it was a technical thing on the guitar, but also I was trying to get the sound in my head and trying to study what Bach was thinking. You know, I learned a little bit about that, and it probably came with me to playing guitar, you know, especially solo guitar. Like on the record One, there's some things that are a little classical-esque, you know.
Okay. Who is your favorite guitarist, jazz guitarist?
Wow, that's impossible to
A lot.
answer. There's so many. Yeah. It would just be a list, and the list would keep adding and adding. You know, but I mean, my top few are probably in no order. You know, but just I would say Schofield, Matheny, Alan Holdsworth, George Benson, Pat Martino. You know. Also, early on, I was not a Wes guy, like a lot of guitar players, and I think you can hear that. It's not a big part of my playing, but now I love Wes. I love Wes and Grant Green, and I try and take, you know, something about the feeling from the music and the melodic aspect of the music, even though I don't play guitar that way, you know.
Okay.
And so many others. I mean, for guitar. Really, I'm influenced a lot by other kinds of music, to be honest. Because my favorite jazz musicians, there's the guitar players I named, but also there's so many horn players and piano players that I've transcribed more than guitar, you know.
Yes.
So really, my biggest influences are actually probably Keith Jarrett and John Coltrane and Lenny Tristano and Charlie Parker, you know. So.
There's so many.
Yeah. And now when I hear music, when I hear anyone, I just hear a musician. I don't hear the instrument, you know?
Okay, next question. What is your guitar practicing schedule?
I wish I had more time. These days, when you're traveling and playing a lot, it's very hard to find enough time to practice. I took a period of about a month this year, and I've just practiced, and it was great. And I realized I want to do that more often, you know? And I might start doing that more because I've been playing for about 30 years, you know, and in the past 10 years it got very busy, so I haven't had just a long period of time to experiment and to try different things and to, because sometimes, you know, introducing new things in your playing is upsetting, you know what I mean? Actually, on the concert last night here, I had a couple techniques that I've been trying, and you know, they worked great in the practice room, and as soon as I tried them on the stage, I said, "Uh-oh, they're not ready." You know,
I think last night is very great.
Well, thank you. I'm very self-critical. So, but I know, you know, when things, it's like Frankenstein. When you unleash the monster too early, it kills everybody. You know. So I think that. Just back to your subject, sometimes it's cool to take time off from concerts because you can grow in a way that you don't when you play concerts, you know. I've talked to a lot of other musicians about this. It's an interesting subject. You think it's better to just play all the time, and if you're playing all the time, you're getting better. But actually, there's some things that you only get better when you're like that kid in the room, you know.
Yeah.
And there's other things that only get better on stage. So. But yeah, lately I've been thinking there's some technical things I've been working on and stuff that I need a little bit of time away from the stage, you know, and to be careful when I'm on the stage trying, you know.
Okay, next question. When you learn a standard jazz song, what is your process?
That's a good question. That process has changed over the years, and there's a lot of different ways to approach it. When I was young, I would just play on instinct. I would find a way to finger it on the guitar that felt comfortable, and I would just do it until my hands almost memorized it, right? And then as I got older, I learned that you can memorize music in a pure way, in a way where you're singing the melodies, you're in touch with the intervals, you know what degree over the chord it is. You can sing the bass line, you can tell the numbers of the bass line. It can all be reduced to a kind of mathematical process that also you can translate onto your instrument. So now I learn music in general more like that. But that being said, any young student, I think it's great just to sing the songs, even if you learn the words, you know. Just gives you a little more background. And then, of course, at the end, just putting your hand on the guitar and playing it is great too, you know?
Yes.
I know that Joe Pass used to do that a lot. He would put his hand on the guitar, play one note, and whatever that one note was, that became the first note of the melody of a tune. And wherever your hand is, you got to play it. You know? So that's the instinct that comes back, just like when you were a kid. You see? So you start like a kid, you grow up, and then you're a kid again. You know?
Yes. Okay. Next, you have the good time and rhythmic.
Well, yeah. Well, there's two different subjects. There's time and there's feel. They're related, but they're slightly different. Like really having good time and scientific understanding of rhythm is one thing, but having a good time feel is a different thing, because time feel is in between the science, right? The science is the way you can write it down and you can say, oh, I can see this is 4/3, you know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the science, but making it feel like that's different. So both are very important, and they help each other. You know, some people think that they're against each other, but I think if you do it correctly, they help each other. You know, I just finished filming a video. 2-hour instructional video on mymusicmasterclass.com. That's going to be completely that subject. The whole thing will be about all the different ways we can subdivide time, even just in 4/4 time. There's so much work to do, you know, and a lot of exercises that I've done through that, from very simple to very advanced, you know. So I'm very scientific about the way I approach it, you know. Look at all the possibilities and develop exercises on your instrument with your hands so you can understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give me some advice how to practice dynamic and space?
Oof, that's a good question. Dynamics and space, yeah.
Yes.
Well, that unfortunately I think is something you don't practice. You just employ, you use it, you know. Just listening to great musicians, you know, Keith Jarrett, Bill Frisell, people that use dynamics and space to a great effect, and try and, I mean, I play with Dr. Lonnie Smith. He's probably the legend of dynamics. He's the best, you know. So I hear it every night when I'm playing with him. And then you just try and absorb the feeling that goes with that and use it in your own music. But that's something, for me, that's a little natural. It's maybe having a little element of drama, of theater in the music, you know, not in the look, but in the sound, you know. If you're attracted to that, you naturally will use space and dynamics in a certain way, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Next question. Any advice on chromatic approach?
That's the next video.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a big subject. I mean, there's a lot of, once again, when you first learn that, you study from the records, you hear the masters doing it, and your first impulse is, wow, these guys are geniuses. It came from outer space. But then if you really start to study, you start to see, oh, okay, look at this. He does this, so does he does this. What is that? Why do they both do that? Maybe he got it from him, but what is it? And then you say, oh, look, he got it from here. Mozart did that, you know, or Bach did that, you know. There was a period in classical music where they were getting so bored of triads that they were starting to embellish them and enclose them and chromatic size around them. So a lot of it came from classical music, but then the jazz musicians took it and they went even further, you know. So there's really, there is a science and there's a lot of language that you can learn to understand it. But basically I go through certain steps. I start with chromatic passing tones between right notes, and then I start learned about how to use chromatics or non-chord tones on the downbeat and what the science behind that. And then of course there's playing against any of those systems or displacing those systems and doing new things with them. There's playing 12-tone music, which is totally different. There's playing blues, which gives you language that doesn't really fit the chords but works great, you know. So there's a lot of different levels to that. But it's good to study it and try and understand the classifications and hear the sounds, you know.
You always transcribe a lot of solo guitar.
Yeah, I balance between transcribing and then trying to create my own language, you know, a little of both, you know.
Okay. Next question about articulation. How to practice for a good articulation?
Articulation is like a funny word sometimes. I think it can mean different things to different people. Maybe explain exactly what you mean by that. You mean the way I hit a note, the sound? I mean, articulation is a very broad term, right? What does articulation mean for you?
I think it's like a short and long note.
Okay, that's one way to think of it, I guess. Yeah, because for me it's funny. It's a funny word. I think articulation is almost that, but it's also dynamics. It's also sound. It's many things, you know. But that stuff for me mostly comes from language, from studying and listening to records, you know, hearing the masters, you know. At one point I was transcribing Sonny Rollins and Clifford Brown and Miles, and they all articulate the notes differently. And I would find technical ways to play, you know, when you hear Miles play something like if he said, you know, he has a little ghost thing he does. It really goes.
Yes.
So I started doing things, you know, but it was just trying to copy the way he did it. Because if Sonny did it, it would be totally different. You know, if Sonny did it, it would be like, longer and laid back, you know what I mean? So I would listen to the way different players did it, try and copy one, try and copy another. Then if I can do both, I can be free to do it the way I hear it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know.
That's the same with anything. The language and the articulation and everything is the same.
Next question. How did you practice phrasing in improvisation? I mean the good phrasing.
Phrasing?
Yes.
The same. They're related. That's what I'm saying. I mean, articulation, phrasing, they all come from the masters, and then your own interpretation of that.
Okay. Next is about use triad. How did you practice triad stuff?
How did I practice triad stuff? Probably like, I mean, obviously I learned how to play them on the instrument. Triads are the main basis of Western music, you know? So you can never practice them enough, you know what I mean? There's always things you can do with that, you know? By the same token, I think it's good to find other sounds too, so I try not to limit myself to that. But the triads are always there as like a framework to all the music, you know. That being said, I mean, I've practiced them all over the guitar, and I look at ways to use them. I mean, the important thing is just to be able to sing them, to know that sound of a triad, you know. It's just another, you know, it's just a tool. It's just a tool to create a sound, you know. There's so many tools in the box, you know. But triads are a big one. It's like triads are like the hammer and the screwdriver, you know. They're the ones you use the most, you know.
Okay. How did you make yourself relax when playing in a very fast like a bebop or very slow tempo like a ballad?
Well, those playing in a fast tempo and playing in a slow tempo are very different.
Yes.
You know, for me, playing on a ballad, just playing on it relaxes me. I don't have to concentrate on relaxing because I hear that sound. As soon as I hear that first chord, I say, I'm relaxed. Playing on a fast bebop is more difficult to relax.
Yes.
I'm still working on that. Try not to drink too much coffee, you know, be warmed up. That's all, you know, that's all you can do, and then learn to breathe, you know, try and relax, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Just learn to breathe.
Yeah. It's always a challenge because you want to relax, but you also don't want to let the music be boring, you know. So for me, it's like finding a balance of relaxing, but also staying intense in the music. You know what I mean? It's a challenge.
Do you have any right hand technique?
I have no right hand technique, unfortunately. No.
I think your right hand is so good, very good.
Sometimes depends. Last night it didn't feel like it. But I always am working on things, and actually some of the new things I'm working on are some different right hand things, which is what's screwing me up a little bit, because I've been a very duple picker many years, and I'm kind of working with some different things now, which is gonna be much better once I can make it through.
What kind of your pick?
I use D'Andrea Proplex, the 351 model, and I cut the back off because I'm crazy.
Why you cut the? Why you
I
cut?
prefer the size of it like that. That's all. It fits right there. But these are great picks, and you can order them at Musician's Friend. I endorse them, so I always try to tell D'Andrea Proplex, the best.
Okay. What is the album? Some artist, some guitar player that you listen to at the moment?
Is there a guitar player I listen to at the moment?
It's everything that you listen to.
Keith Jarrett.
Keith Jarrett.
Yeah, when he plays guitar. In my head, I imagine his piano being a big guitar, and I say, "Wow, if I could play guitar like that, forget about it." You know? No, I listen to a lot of different stuff, but right now I'm really listening to a lot of Keith Jarrett. Yeah.
Okay. Next question about your gear, your guitar, and your effects. What you use?
Well, usually my favorite is when I have a Fender Deluxe reverb in stereo with like a polytone with a 15. That's my main sound for my records these days. I did many records with a little Princeton that was modified, had a 12-inch speaker and 6L6s. That was South of Everywhere and Trioing. But the new records like One, Wave Upon Wave, Shadowless, that's all the Fender Deluxe reverb in stereo with the polytone.
And about guitar, you use
It's 1973, I think, Gibson 175. Been playing this for a long time. You can see my favorite frets to practice. That's where I practice mostly. You can see because there's no paint there.
It's so beautiful guitar.
Yeah, she's been around. She's got some scars, but I haven't found anyone to replace her. I've been looking for another 175 actually. I think I might get another one if I can find one.
I saw you use this always.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have some nice acoustics. On the solo guitar record, there's two acoustics also. A Collings and Indian Hill.
Yes.
Yeah, both nice guitars.
And how about your effect?
There's a lot of stuff.
You use a lot of effect.
Yeah, sometimes. If I play trio, it's less effects, but when I play with the band, I use a lot of stuff, a delay pedal, an Echolution delay pedal. I use an old Alesis reverb. I use a JHS Morning Glory for a little bit of dirt. I use a Sparkle Drive, Voodoo Lab for more dirt. I use a Micropog for some crazy stuff. Yeah, that's about it.
You use hollow body guitar like a Gibson 175 and use a lot of effect. Do you have a lot of problem about feedback?
Well, sometimes, but sometimes I can't figure out why. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have a little, not a lot, but I have a way of moving on the stage and covering the strings that usually keeps it from happening.
And how do you protect the feedback sounds?
Well, like I said, I usually I don't have too much problems. Sometimes I'll find one or two notes that give me like a scream, and I just usually move.
You just move?
I move in a way where it stops it, yeah. Sometimes I move to make it do it. I like it too sometimes, so.
Like Pat Metheny, he used something.
Some foam?
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't had to do that. Usually seems okay. Yeah. Maybe I should try it. I don't know.
Yes, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. You use Lexicon LXP1?
No.
No, you don't use it. Okay.
I use an old Alesis Nanoverb. Cheaper, much cheaper, but I like it. It's just, to me, it's a little cleaner, a little less dense. It's a little more open.
And you modify it.
Modify what?
Your
The reverb?
reverb.
No.
No. Okay. In your opinion, what is the obstacle for jazz student in study and jazz?
What is the obstacle for the student? Every student is different, you know. But I'd say the thing to watch out for is to make sure that the information, the scales and the arpeggios and all the information you get in school is only secondary to the language. The language is number one. So you have to learn from the records. You have to transcribe and learn the standards by ear. Then the information helps to explain it.
Okay.
That's the ultimate challenge with all this new music education we have, is to remember that that's there to explain the language. It's not a substitute for the language. That's a good one.
You play with the great number like Arihonic.
Arihonic, yeah, we used to play together a lot.
Yes. How do you prepare yourself to play with him?
The same as any gig. You practice the music.
Okay.
You know.
Because I think he has the good rhythm, good time and everything. Yes.
Yeah. No, Ari has his own rhythmic language, so you always learn something about. Subdivisions and ways of thinking of the rhythm when you play with Ari. And he's very interactive, you know. So that's a different thing too. Some drummers, they kind of lay it down, and Ari he wants to be speaking with you. So it's always fun, yeah.
You mentioned too about play guitar like a lay back. Do you have any exercise or something?
No, you got to get it from the records. Learn how to
learn from record.
Learn from Lester Young and and Coleman Hawkins and the guys that really lay back, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What is the most important thing that guitarists should pay attention but they are not?
I think I can't answer. There's nothing guitar players do. It depends on the individual, you know. Guitar players are just like normal people. There's so many different kinds, you know.
Okay. The last question, any words for Thai fans?
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. I fell in love with this country, and I'm hoping to be back again soon. The people, the weather, the food, everything is just amazing. You guys should be very happy and proud. And also, I'm very impressed by the administration and the organization of jazz education and jazz performance that I've seen here. It's very comforting for an American to see that in other parts of the world, this music is growing and living. So I just say keep doing it, and I look forward to many years of visiting you guys. Hope to see you again soon.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We hope to see you again in Thailand.
Sounds great.
Yes. โอเคนะครับนี่คือบทสัมภาษณ์กับคุณโจนาธานไคลส์เบิร์กนะครับก็กีตาร์ไทยต้องขอบพระคุณวิทยาลัยดุริยางคศิลป์มหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลนะครับที่ให้โอกาสเราได้สัมภาษณ์มือกีตาร์สุดยอดเช่นนี้นะครับแล้วก็อีกงานหนึ่งที่จะต้องขอขอบคุณเป็นพิเศษเลยคือ TIJC นะครับสำหรับงานประจำปีของมหาวิทยาลัยนะครับถ้ายังไงรอติดตามดูว่าเทปต่อๆไปกีตาร์ไทยจะสัมภาษณ์ใครนะครับวันนี้ผมกับคุณโจนาธานลาไปก่อนนะครับสวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณครับ